So if it's all right, we'll just kick starting. The aim of this presentation was really just to provide everybody with kind of like an update on what we have incorporated this year, especially in the questionnaire. So looking at the questionnaire in more detail. So if that's okay, I'm just going to share my screen so we can actually all look into that. And with that on mind, also, this is a really good opportunity to cover some questions that you may have for the questionnaire for this year. As probably you have seen, if you had the opportunity to look into it, we haven't really made a lot of big changes in the questionnaire. More than making big changes, we look to refine some of the questions and just the definitions, just to be sure that now that we are finally getting out of the pandemic effects, we can actually really track into everything that it's relevant. So we don't need to make any further changes in the next few years either. Zoom a little bit more. So just I'm going to take you through the Excel. And once again, if you have any questions, please just stop me. This is a really good opportunity just to answer some questions. Now, something that I want to highlight is the fact that because some universities were unable to participate last year, this year, and we have done this in the past, this is not something new, we will collect again the 2021 data. And this is only for the universities who participate last year. If in case you want to revise some of your figures, as we have done in the past. But for the universities who did not participate, we really need to get this information so we can actually have the complete timelines and have a complete understanding of what happened for the actual analysis. Okay? Now, basically, the Excel, as previous years, it's all separated by different sections and tabs that are included in each section. So on section 1, it's all about student recruitment. Section 2 is all about outbound mobility, learning abroad. Then we have section 3, which is the student retention part of the analysis. And then we have digital and online. Now, for digital online, who pretty much are kind of like the new sections of the benchmark, we haven't changed anything significantly. And as probably you remember, are more question-based items that just trying to assess how universities in New Zealand are engaging in these areas. And we're trying to measure the effectiveness of these strategies and how universities are thinking they will move forward for the next years. Now, the only big addition that we had for section 4, and this came from feedback that we received from the universities, is the fact that in digital strategies, we used to look at 4 areas: social media marketing, which is basically paid social media campaigns; virtual student first as the second one; search engine marketing, which is basically ads in Google; then the use of student online portals. But because we know that a lot of universities are now engaging in the use of student ambassador platforms, especially looking for conversion strategies, we actually include some questions for this particular digital tool. So it's very straightforward. We haven't made a lot of changes in here. And the only one that, as I said, you're going to see that is quite clear is this one, which is the online student ambassador platforms. Now, also for this section, we include some additional items. One is basically to ask about how you are distributing your budgets. And this is basically, we're trying just to get estimates on how you're actually doing that. This is just for the budget that you use for digital. And we understand that sometimes it's hard for you just to identify in particular how this is distributed. But if you can give us, an understanding of how you are doing this, we think that this is very useful so everybody can have a better comparative view on how people are moving in this particular area. And the other one that I think is quite interesting that is new is this one, which basically is asking questions about the role of education agents and how universities are actually engaging with agents in the use of digital strategies. We know that a lot of agents are feeling a little bit, how to say that, they are basically wondering how, if universities are going to use digital strategies basically to bypass the role of agents, which we know that is not necessarily the case. And for that reason, we ask these questions on how you're actually trying to integrate basically your agent strategy with your digital marketing strategy. This is all about student recruitment once again. So not a lot of big changes, and the changes, I think, they're going to be very useful just to expand the view of universities in this particular area. Now, in section 5, and once again, if you have any questions, just let me know. But in section 5, once again, we haven't made any big changes on this. The only one that we are incorporating this year is that we are actually asking for the first time on your actual numbers of students in transnational programs. And this is a tricky one. It seems like a simple one, but transnational, there are so many different definitions that we actually look for one that we believe actually covers pretty much everybody's operations in New Zealand. And is basically, you need to count as a transnational international student as a student who is studying for a higher education program to basically get the award for the higher education program at your university, and is basically identified by the New Zealand University as one of your students. Now, this is a very important combination because we know that you could actually have students maybe who are in some sort of a pathway of show, that could lead to get an award, but not necessarily we can actually count down as a student for your universities. So we also need to incorporate that second part, that is basically when you consider them as part of your university community. Somebody defines this as if the student gets a student ID card with the university name, that basically, in a way, identifies them as is part of your university, basically, as one of your students. So yeah, it's going to be interesting just to see what we can get out of this. And we're doing this for the first time because I think it was time now just to put some numbers into the transnational education strategies of universities. We have been asking, about the intentions and where you're actually placing the students, but I think it's going to be useful just to see or how everybody is moving forward in this particular area. Okay. All right. That's transnational, and then we have the same questions, by field of study, field of plans, and the same for online degrees. So that hasn't changed as well. Now I'm gonna move to section 2, which is all about outbound mobility. That, as you know, for this analysis we call it learning abroad. Now, for this one in particular, one of the big changes, and we already include this in the last year's questionnaire, is that we are also considering what is called virtual global experiences, which is basically students who take a learning experience with an international angle through a virtual channel. So we're asking this year just to not only give us those experiences who are face-to-face, but also the ones who are actually done through a virtual channels. And also we are acknowledging for the first time that some of these learning experiences may not be necessarily face or virtual. It could have a combination of both. So those multi-mode combination of both different delivery modes have to be recorded for this particular analysis. And once again, it could be a gap with things that we basically used to count in previous years, but this is something that I believe is going to be the way to go for the future in next following years, because that's how around the world people are actually starting to count these learning experiences. Okay. Besides that, not a lot of changes. Basically, it's pretty much the same that we had last year. It was something here. No, it's just that we included delivery mode. Oh, yes. And as an optional a column, and I'm going to go through the columns now. And once again, we know that some universities could have their limitations with this. For that reason, we are counting this as a optional column. We are asking if the student receive a particular funding, could be government funding, like the Prime Minister's scholarships, or some institutional funding just to assist them just to undertake the learning experience. So if the university has the opportunity just to provide us with that, I think that would be really, really useful, because I think that for learning abroad, having that granular level of understanding of what kind of students are getting certain types of fundings is extremely useful, so we can actually see how the student participation for these programs could actually grow or not. And the other one is the third-party providers. It's not something that at this stage is quite common in New Zealand, but in other basically in other countries, it is actually quite common. Some other countries, companies or organizations help universities in provide these learning abroad experiences. Either they create the complete curriculum of the program, or they actually execute the learning abroad experience. So we really want to start counting, if possible, if any of these experiences receive certain, support through a third-party provider. Okay. All right. Now moving to the big one, which is section 1, which is all about student recruitment, as you know. So once again, we have the 2 tabs, one to collect in raw data format. And I always like to remind everybody that we don't need any personal information from the students. We only need a student ID identifier. This could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever works for you, but we just need to identify each one of the students. So we have one tab for commencement students and the other one for enrollment students. This is exactly the same tabs that we use in the last 2 years, I think. So we haven't changed anything in this particular area. Okay. Now, in terms of the inbound questions, one of the things that we actually refined for this year is that when we collect information, and this is actually more clear when we talk about the finance questions, we actually make clear that what we are trying just to collect is operational budgets that refer to student recruitment, but I will take you through that in a second. In here, in the questions, really there are no changes actually in this particular set of questions, so we can actually provide the same one. What I thought it was important just to explain here is that some universities, they said last year that this piece of conversion, it's a little bit hard for them just to calculate every single aspect of it. So if you want to provide us this information in a raw kind of format, if that actually reduces the workload and you can give us the complete set of the students who are applicants, then who receive an offer and to receive actually commence the program, that's something that we can work with you if that's something that could reduce the workload. And we basically crunch the numbers on your behalf, and we'll send you the results of these tables so you can actually tell us, okay, this actually makes sense. So we can actually use that. But we are happy just to help you with this particular part, because we know that it's one that it really takes a lot of time. So we were wondering if we should actually go and ask for the raw data, but we know that some universities don't necessarily feel comfortable about it. So at this stage, we're actually just offering the option of getting the information in raw manner, and we'll calculate it for you, because these ones might be a little bit simple, but the other ones, when we actually ask if the applicant came from an agent and if he was onshore and offshore, that it gets a bit more tricky. This is one that we can actually work with you just to make it work. Okay. Now, the additional set of questions are exactly the same, so there is no problem in this one. As I said, the ones who actually have a few more questions is this one, which is the finance questions, which basically is just making it clear that what we are trying to basically understand here is more about the student, the real efforts just to manage international student recruitment efforts. And that's why we changed this to operational cost of a student recruitment. Before it was called only operational cost. I don't think that for a lot of universities will make any change. It was just to make clear that this is the definition that we're all trying to follow. But basically, we haven't really changed any of the definitions that brings this particular number. Okay, but it was just to make it clear. Okay. Now, okay, we have delegated costs. And here, this one actually is a little bit of a change, simply because when we ask the number of FTEs for particular areas, in this section, probably you remember that we used to ask for the staff related to student services. And the reality is that for many, many years, we received feedback of universities saying it's very hard for us just to calculate the FTE of a student services staff that is only focused on international. Like there are so many different parts and so many different units that it's actually really hard for us to calculate that. So for that reason, but also because we identified that it doesn't bring a lot to the analysis, we actually taking away that section or that part of the calculation of a student services staff. So at this stage, you're going to see that we have the traditionals, which is marketing and recruitment, inquiries, admissions, compliance, but we used to have a 1.14.5, which was the student services, so that's taken away. Okay, and I think that makes sense. I think it was a lot of work trying just to guesstimate that, and really the return, it was basically what we could report out of that. It was actually not that relevant. Now, just a reminder that this also includes the option of giving us the salaries. And most of the time, universities just give us the total salaries that goes in each one of these areas. And these are very useful so we can actually validate the data. For example, if we get a university reporting one admissions FTE and the salary is $1 million, this is when we can actually come back to the universities and double check that, there's something that doesn't look right. If it probably is right, but probably is not. But that really gives us reassurance that things are actually reported correctly. And also, this is very important because, as probably you remember in the past, it has been always the case that from the total budgets that universities are reporting, about 80% are actually salaries. So having this part of the salaries correctly, I think is very important for the analysis and for the benefit of everybody. Okay. All right. So, yep, in this particular section, as I said, we are not using or not reporting on student services. Besides that, cost of recruitment is exactly the same. And once again, as you can see, we have 2021 and 2022. Is optional for universities who participate last year to provide this. If you want to revise your figures, you can do it, but if not, you don't need to worry. But if you did not participate, we actually require this so we can complete the data set. Okay. Now, that's it. So basically, as you can see, not a lot of changes this year. We make clear, a little bit more clear now when we actually measuring the quality of the data. So you can actually now give us an understanding if it's a total guess or if it's actually very accurate or not, the response that you are providing us. And you always can, put additional comments, send us the comments by email, and, measuring the quality. We are going to undertake for this particular year, additional validation protocols just to double check if things are a bit off, simply because we didn't have two universities did not participate the previous year. So we want to just ensure that everything is right. So if we see something else, we'll come back to you and we ask if you have any particular questions. Okay. So, yep, I'm going to stop sharing. But if you have any questions, more than happy just to answer that now. Or if you want probably to talk a bit later, we will actually going to have a few more of these kind of shorty sessions as we go. Just, so we can actually check how everybody's progressing. And once again, if anybody has particular questions as we go, we can actually check on that. Okay. So, yeah, Greg, I think you have a question.
Just to clarify right at the top level, all international students in all parts of our organization, including our offshore operations, we're reporting all of them. That's right.
Yes, that's something
Okay.
that we changed last year because we had students who were, were not in New Zealand at the time. So I'm expecting that you will see a little bit less, but still, because we are collecting 2022, you will have quite a good number of them. But yeah, you are correct. So
Okay,
we
cool.
are actually covering yeah. So we changed I think the definition was before COVID, it was onshore students. Now it's all international students. So
Yep. Okay, cool. Yep. No, I just wanted to comment on that.
yeah, and that's a big one. Thanks for asking that one. Yeah. Cool. Jonathan, I don't know if you have any questions.
Nah, I'm all good. I'm doing this for the first time, so I'm just listening to the people I have to talk to get this data. So yeah, nothing else. No questions for now.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Well, if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out. But yeah, it's very similar to what we have done in the previous years. So we didn't want to muck around with a lot of things. So yeah, hopefully it will be streamlined. But if anybody has any questions, you can contact me. Cool. Excellent. All right. Once again, sorry for the technical issue that we have. It was just trying to, take you through the questionnaire just to check if there are any particular questions. But I think we're good at the moment. Okay. So if that's all right, we'll just stop here and yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Okay.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks a lot, Kerry. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Have a great week, everybody.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye. You too.
Okay. See you. Bye.